Hello everybody, and welcome to another video on setting up and using the Kurzweil K2700 and similar Kurzweil keyboards using the VAST technology. In my previous video I used an octave string sound that I created based on a factory program, and I thought it'd be useful to do a short video to show you how I created that. It's a fairly simple process, duplicating layers in a program and transposing them, but there's a bit of tidying up that I needed to do to make it work smoothly. So in this video I'll show you how to duplicate those layers, transpose them, and then remove layers and controls that you don't need and which might have unintended effects. So start with a factory sound, 290 keyboard strings. So if I play some of that, it's a nice punchy sound which I like, and if you've watched the previous video on setting up multis, you'll have heard the sound that I was aiming at when I went through this process. So one thing to note about this sound is that the variation button changes the sound to pizzicato. So if I'm playing and I operate the variation button, and that's not something that I wanted in the patch that I was going to use in the multi. So we'll find out how to turn that off. So the first thing I'll do is save it as a new program, which for me will be 8009 because I know that's a free slot. So save. 8009 on the keypad. I'm going to rename it so there's our new program that we can edit. So the first thing I'll do is delete the pizzicato layer. So if we go to key maps and find out what's going on, layer 1 is a violin sound, layer 2 is a violin sound, and layer 3, there's our pizzicato sound. So we can delete that. If I go to delete layer button, layer 3, delete. So we've got rid of the pizzicato and we now only have the two layers that we want. So to do the octaves, we're going to select layer 1 and duplicate that layer. That then becomes a new layer 3. We'll go back to the original layer 2 and we'll duplicate that layer, which becomes a new layer 4. So now we've doubled our layers, and if I play it you'll hear, you can probably hear there's some doubling there, and there's a bit of a phasing effect between the sounds. So now we're going to do the transpose. We'll select layer 3 and we go to the key map page and transpose down 12. We're going to do the same for layer 4, down 12. So there we have our octave string sound. That's all fairly simple. Now I realise that I may be transposing some samples beyond their really usable range, but for the range of playing that I want, that's not a problem. So I'm going to save those and exit. Now we need to deal with the variation button. So if I operate the variation button, it still comes up as pizzicato, and if I play some notes, which you can't see, nothing happens because we've deleted layer 3. So we need to deal with that. So edit again, and on the layer page we need to change the enable setting. Currently it's set to the variation button. We want to change that to on. So I'm going to scroll down until I reach a setting of on. And I haven't found a shortcut for this one, so I have to use the wheel. Now we also need to change the enable high and enable low settings. These are very flexible settings, but they're also quite complicated, so I'm not going to explain them in this video. So enable low is 0, enable high is 127, and we need to do what we've just done for all layers 1, 2, 3 and 4. So going to layer 2, 127 and on, layer 3, on, 127, layer 4, and we're going to save that. If I exit and then we test it, so there's our octave string sound. If I press the variation button, it says pizzicato, but nothing changes. So we're halfway there. What I'd like to do is actually change the use of the variation button and use it to switch the octaves on and off, which is something that's done in many of the stock programs. So if we edit again and select the layer page for zone 3, we will reset this to variation. This is MIDI 29. We could type 29 on the keypad as a shortcut to it. Now we need to adjust those values again. Enable high needs to be 127. Enable low can be 64, which is a boundary for switching on and off. And repeat that for layer 4. So that needs to be 64. And we need to re-enable variation, MIDI 29, and save and exit. So the variation button is off and we get our single layer of strings. If I put the variation button on, there we get our octaves, but it still says pizzicato. So let's turn that off again and go and do the final edit. So if we edit and select the parameters page, we're there already. Scroll down to pizzicato. Now we can edit that parameter. And if we select the text, we can edit that text. And I'm just going to rename that. Go back. Save. And exit. So there's our single layer of strings, variation button on, it says octaves. So I think we've tidied up. As you can see, duplicating the layers is the simplest of all the operations. Altering the controls to do what you want and to be displayed as what you want is a bit more complicated, but it's all nice and tidy now. So hope you found that useful. As always, I've put a PDF of the steps in this process in my Dropbox, and you can download those using the link in the video description if you want. If there are other things you'd like to see covered in a video, let me know in the comments. I'm still learning about this keyboard, so I don't guarantee to have the answers, but I'm happy to look into things that I might be able to use in my own music. I have a plan for one more video in this series of basic setups, then a couple of other more technical ones, but at some point I'm going to take a break off and actually produce some of my own music, which I'll publish on this YouTube channel. Meanwhile, have a listen to music I've already produced. There's some smooth jazz and some ambient tracks. And hope to see you again in the next video. Bye for now.